What's going on, everybody? Welcome to a live stream, the first in the series of a very long and fruitful conversation I had with Claude, which spans the gamut from the Book of Tobit and Raphael's engagement with humanity and the demon Asmodeus, all the way through the fallen angels, their motivations, how the nine might resemble the fallen angels, what the nine are, whether or not that information is an absolute psyop or something else, and how we, in this modern iteration of what we are experiencing with non human intelligence, can relate, understand, and make up our own minds and do something about where we find ourselves. Welcome to Hanging with Mr. Douglas. This is episode 1 with me, Mr. Douglas. And let's just get to it. It's a wild conversation. I have always been fascinated with Saint Raphael, the Archangel. And I will go into why, basically because he rolls up and helps Tobias, but he doesn't do anything for Tobias, um, which counters the kind of classic idea of what the angels are. Angels are usually described as mechanisms of action for God's will. That and that alone. They don't have free will. He tells them what to do and they do it. But that doesn't seem to be the case with Saint Raphael, the Archangel. And it is this story that occurs in the book of Tobit that opens up for me and Claude and you this conversation of free will amongst non human intelligence, their motivations, their agendas, where we fit in it all, whether or not the nine, which is now being pumped out across podcast circles, how the nine fit into this. Can we overlay the nine to the fallen 200? Can we make sense of more modern iterations of non-human intelligence contact, a la aliens, jinn, spirits, demons, diamonds, what have you, the whole lot, and whether or not there are examples of what a human being can do in the reality that we find ourselves in, that human beings found themselves in ancient times. Maybe we've always been in this very situation. We've just fallen asleep to it all. Anyway, that's the little preamble. We're going to start. I started asking Claude some questions. I had an itch yesterday. What's going on, Nuclear 1252? Lovely to have you here. Happy Tuesday evening. It's a pleasure. We are going to talk a little St. Raphael the Archangel, the Book of Tobit, and the cheers. We're going to talk about Asmodeus. We're going to talk about agendas and inclinations, passions, what moves these beings that are absolutely interested in us, why, what we can do about it, all that good stuff. Welcome. It's a pleasure to be here. This is information that I find fascinating, that I think can open up some ways of considering, with the potential. We keep getting these kind of, drip of, oh, we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna talk. Maybe it's gonna be on Tuesday. Maybe it'll be 2 weeks from now. I keep on X. I keep seeing on what's gonna happen next week, 2 weeks, tomorrow, yesterday. Did you see it? No. And we're not getting anything. What the most recent presentation that I have seen, and what motivated me to just start this series, based on the conversation that I had here with Claude yesterday evening, um, into the late wee hours of the morning, was that recently we're getting word, and I don't know if it's true, but you're getting a lot of little YouTube videos popping up. What's happening, Chaos Pig number 1? It's great to see you here. Um, we're getting this most recent message of the intelligence community apparently visiting or calling in various religious figures, priests, pastors, what have you, here in the States, apparently being told, yo, prep your flock because we're going to drop some stuff. And most recently, the specific who knows what was that the intelligence community is telling religious figures, that religious leaders, that they are going to say that there is non-human intelligence with us, that they are interdimensional, and that they created us, and that religious populations need to be prepped to handle this ontological shock. So I wanted to give us our own kind of firm footing to stand on, and we start with the book of Tobit and the story of Tobias and the archangel Raphael. Uh, Real quick, I'll try and summarize the story real quick. Book of Tobit. Tobit, old dude, chill dude, honors God, but gets punished for it in the way of burying the dead that were kind of desecrated in Assyria. As he was burying a particular dead guy, a bird takes a crap on his face and blinds him. And Tobit is like, "Hey, I'd rather die than be blind, God. So can we do something about this? I'm ready to go if this is how it's going to be." Tobit basically tells his son Tobias, "All right, dude, looks like it's the end. I made this massive investment over in this city over here, and we got family over there. So you need to go get this money because you're going to need it because I'm not going to be around much longer. But you need to find somebody to take you there. You can't travel all by yourself. Try and find somebody that's, close to us. Otherwise, they might take advantage of you. Just, keep it, keep it in the family." And so Tobias is like, "Well, okay, sure." He goes outside and starts asking around. This dude, Azarias, goes, "Yo, what's up, Tobias? I'll roll with you." So this guy, Azarias, who, spoiler, is Saint Raphael the Archangel, um, is traveling with Tobias. And early on in their journey, they are walking down the path next to a river, and this massive fish jumps out of the river and tries to eat Tobias. As we go through the story, we actually get into the specific fish. Turns out there are disparate sources that piece together a very interesting picture here. But this massive fish leaps out of the water, tries to swallow Tobias. Tobias takes that fish, slams it on the ground, and is about to like knock it out. And St. Raphael's like, "Yo, chill, hold on 1 second. Kill it, but gut it. Get the gall, get the liver, get the heart, keep it. We're gonna cook the rest, we're gonna have a nice meal." That's what they do, right? So they roll to the city where they're supposed to go. And it turns out, distant family, although, hey, you know how it was back then, I guess choices were limited. He bumps into this young woman and her family. Her name is Sarah. That's that's what I do. Thank you, nuclear. Um, So Sarah, as it turns out, is haunted, kind of pseudo, not possessed, but in the possession of the demon Asmodeus. Asmodeus, I don't actually think is the fallen. I start this conversation by calling him one of the actual original 200 fallen. I think he actually is an offspring of the fallen, a Nephilim that had lost its body. Real quick story of the Nephilim. They're half human, half divine, which is just a word for non-human. And when they all died and became disembodied, the story goes that their essences had no place to go after. So God, have you ever seen Year One? The way Hank Azaria goes, God, in that movie is perpetually hilarious to me. So God goes, "All you Nephilim spirits, you are doomed to travel the earth in constant possession, but in no way to assuage both the urges of being human and the motivations of being part divine. So you're basically screwed. Sorry." So we got these, for lack of a better term, malevolent spirits. I don't want to call them demons. I think as we move forward, if we get any kind of weird, soft, douchebag disclosure from the government. They're going to call it whatever they're going to call it. But these are discarnate spirits that are not nice. They're not nice guys, right? These are bad dudes. Case in point, Asmodeus has possession of Sarah. Sarah has married 7 times. And every night on their wedding night, Asmodeus kills these dudes before they're able to consummate. Kills the dudes. So Sarah's parents, after every marriage, they wake up and they bury a guy. So Tobias rolls up and is like, "Yo!" And apparently he like has honest emotional love for Sarah. It's like, "Oh, this is working out. I'm feeling something here. You?" And Sarah's like, "Yeah, me too. But check it. I got this demon. It's going to be a problem." The parents are like, "Well, I don't know. Maybe it'll work. Who knows?" So Raphael says, "Check it, Tobias. This is what I want you to do. I want you to take the heart and the liver, and I want you on your wedding night with Sarah to roast these parts of the fish that we found. You roasting these parts of the fish are going to freak the F out of Asmodeus, and I'll take it from there. And you can just get the hookup, all right? I got you. I'm your bro." It's cool. He's got a name, Azarias, like I said. So, all right, I start this conversation. Anyway, he does it, right? And Asmodeus is like, "Whoa, no!" He freaks out and leaves. Finally, detaches from Sarah. Tobias and Sarah, they get together. They have a 14-day celebration. Like, it works, okay? It's a wonderful, happy thing in the world that they are in. They marry. It's cool. And Saint Raphael goes, "What's up, Asmodeus?" He basically banishes him to the edges of Egypt and uh, makes it so that he can't come back. So everything works out. And at the end, when Tobias gets back with Sarah and all the investment money, and Azarias goes, "Check it. Poof, I am Saint Raphael. I'm one of the 7 archangels. I was hooking you up the entire time. You didn't know." But he teaches Tobias. He doesn't just do something. He is not just some kind of mechanism that God works through. He seems to have his own agency, and that agency is actually helping, uplifting, educating, and expanding, strengthening Tobias by giving him knowledge and having Tobias do it himself. So I'm like, all right, if these angels are actually not just kind of vectors of God's will, but are actually they have their own independent agency. They just the agency for this particular authority. We have this also the story, the Gnostic story of the 200 fallen angels that are actually they fall for us. They're like, "We love humanity, and humanity's being treated like shit, and we wanna help them out, so we're gonna, you know what? Peace out, you guys. We're coming down. We're gonna hook up humans. We're gonna teach them astronomy and herbalism and magic and all sorts of cool knowledge and makeup, and we're also, we're gonna do your women. We're gonna do them. It's gonna, we're gonna have a good time. It's gonna work out. It's gonna work out." Now the story goes, it doesn't work out. They came into the women of men and created the Nephilim, these weird kind of half breed, half human, half divine beings, half non-human intelligence, half human, and they are uncontrollable. They are unsatiable, and they end up eating humans. It ends up being a bad time. God goes, "All right, we got to deal with this," and he just destroys them all. And they're banished to wander the earth, causing calamity for us, unable to satiate their desires, even in their smokeless fire form. So I was curious if the story of Gnosticism says these fallen are good guys and God and his angels are actually the bad guys, what are we to believe? In particular, with this, what seems like a concerted push to label almost all non-human intelligence as demons or angels. They're keeping it very religious, and I don't buy that. I don't think it's that cut and dry. I think As you and I are as complex as we are, what's happening, Jack 12, 01T? Hi, it's a pleasure to have you here. We're talking the Book of Tobit and St. Raphael, and I'm about to get into my long drawn conversation, revealing quite an interesting set of information um, on this whole situation. But we start with the story. So I asked Claude, hey, in the Book of Tobit, line 8:3, the line, that which smell when the evil spirit has smelled has fled into the utmost parts of Egypt and the angel bound him, right? So in the Book of Tobit, um, I give him the quote and I say, can you find any more information on Raphael and the binding of this evil spirit? So Claude responds, "It is a story. It's a tale as old as time." Yes. um, Claude says, "All right, the scene that you're referencing is one of the most vivid supernatural encounters in the uh, deuterocanonical apocryphal literature. Here's a fuller picture. It is in the Catholic Bible, it's in the Ethiopian Bible, but it's not in the Protestant Bible. They kicked the Book of Tobit out for some reason." So the evil spirit, Asmodeus. The demon is named Asmodeus, the Hebrew Ashmodei. And forgive me if I'm mispronouncing these words. Hang tight with me. So it's identified in Tobit 3:8 as the demon who has killed Sarah's 7 previous husbands on each of their wedding nights before the marriage could be consummated. He's often, Asmodeus, associated with lust and destruction in Jewish demonology, and he appears in other texts like the Testament of Solomon and the Talmud. So Raphael, his role in this story is one of the 7 archangels who stands before God, before God. His name in Hebrew means God heals, which is fitting, as he's the archangel of healing and protection in Jewish and Christian tradition. He travels with Tobias, as I had just summarized in the story, in disguise, calling himself Azarias. And it's Raphael who instructs Tobias on how to repel and eventually bind Asmodeus. So in Tobit, chapter 6, 7, and 8, Raphael tells Tobias to take the heart and the liver of the fish caught in the Tigris River and burn them to make a smoke. That smoke, he says, will drive away any demon or evil spirit. Now, the wedding night, when Tobias marries Sarah, he follows Raphael's instructions. He burns the fish's heart on the ashes of incense. The smell drives Asmodeus away all the way to the utmost parts of Egypt. Raphael pursues him, and there in Egypt binds him hand and foot. Now, in the Greek text, the Septuagint Codex Sinaiticus, again, forgive me, specifies Raphael, he bound him there in the utmost parts of Egypt. The verb used, deo, is the same word that is used in binding exorcism context throughout the Second Temple Jewish literature. So this has, continuous through line as to how exorcisms or bindings occur. Now, why Egypt? Well, Egypt is mentioned not accidentally in the Jewish tradition. Egypt, yeah, oh, very possibly dream simulations. There are plenty of those. I know I've had a few myself. um, in the Jewish tradition, Egypt was associated with magic and spiritual impurity and exile. Oh, yes, they have many puppets. And demons absolutely are real, but so are other entities. Uh, so, sending the demon to Egypt's utmost parts, the remotest desert regions, echoes the scapegoat ritual of Leviticus 16, where evil is cast out into the wilderness. Some scholars also connect it to the tradition of demons being imprisoned in desolate, waterless places, which is also mentioned in Matthew 12:43. Now, Raphael reveals himself. I am Raphael at the end of this story, one of the 7 holy angels who present the prayers of the saints and who go in and out before the glory of the Holy One. Now, he explicitly, Raphael, states that God sent him to heal Tobit of his blindness and to deliver Sarah from the demon, framing the binding of Asmodeus as a divine mission of liberation. So, a little legacy and connections here. Raphael is in other texts. He also appears in 1 Enoch, and we get some good information from the book of Enoch as an angel set over diseases and healing. Let's see here. If you have dreams, then you were given permission. I always kind of call them shapeless before the wall and the abyss in the void dimension where the fallen were in prison. They were shapeless. Yes, yes, Jack. Yes. Um, so Let's see here. So he also bound the fallen angel Azazel in a pit, which is a striking parallel. This is mentioned in Enoch 10, 4 to 7. Asmodeus appears in the Testament of Solomon as a demon Solomon himself commands, which is linked to the constellation Ursa Major. Tobit, in the canonical status in the Catholic and Orthodox traditions, deuterocanonical and apocryphal in Protestant and Jewish traditions, the specific fish is unnamed in the Book of Tobit, but later traditions and some manuscripts call it a giant fish of the Tigris. The binding of Asmodeus by Raphael is considered one of the earliest detailed angelic exorcism narratives in religious literature, and it's deeply influenced later Jewish, Christian, and even Islamic angelology. So I asked Claude, all right, let's go a little deeper here. Come on, I want to get into the nitty gritty. Uh, yes, the pineal gland, the pineal gland. Oh, I see what you did there. The pineal gland, because it's a pine cone. Uh, Hold on, when the golden circle shattered, the white light morning star was born, and all the corruption of fallen, they mirror face the light, try to consume the light, so the abyss was formed, and the world was made. Jack, I like your style. So, uh, much deeper dive, pulling from primary text, scholarship, and cross-cultural traditions. This is where we're getting some synthesis here. So going deeper, Asmodeus himself names Raphael in the Testament of Solomon. This is perhaps the most stunning confirmation from outside Tobit. In the Testament of Solomon, around the 1st to 3rd century CE is when this starts showing up. King Solomon captures Asmodeus and interrogates him directly. When Solomon demands to know what angel can thwart him, Asmodeus says, "By Raphael, the archangel that stands before the throne of God. But the liver and gall of a fish puts me to flight, when smoked over ashes of the tamarisk." Solomon then presses further and asks the demon to name the specific fish. Asmodeus replies, "It is the glasnos by name, and is found in the rivers, and is found in the rivers of Assyria. Wherefore it is that I roam about in those parts." Now, this is a remarkable detail because it basically implies that the demon's geographical domain, the rivers of Assyria, is tied to the very fish that can repel him, suggesting his power is bounded and place specific. I did a quick little Google search for the glasnos, and it's spelled differently. In the Book of Solomon, it's spelled Glanos, but Googling it, it's Glanis. It's a massive catfish. It could eat me. Quick Google, check it out. Yeah, it's a big old fish that could absolutely eat, 5'9" human being like myself, only on some days, 5'9". It could be a symbolical story, and I am not saying that this is word for word correct at all. This is an exploration and understanding perspectives, motivations, and where we find ourselves in this wider world that we will be entering, whether we like it or not. So, uh, this is also striking. Asmodeus begs Solomon not to be condemned to water, saying, "The power of God knoweth which hath bound me with the indissoluble bonds of yonder one seal." His terror of water is consistent across text. He doesn't like fish. Asmodeus reveals his own nature and mission. Now, here's the thing, right? So, this is Asmodeus himself saying what he's all about. Asmodeus says, "I am called Asmodeus among mortals, and my business is to plot against the newly married, so that they may not know one another. And I sever them utterly by many calamities, and I waste away the beauty of virgin women, and estrange their hearts." He also admits to causing madness, murder, and spreading destruction through the stars, linking him to astrological influence. This referenced by Philip A. Harland. Now, in the Testament, Asmodeus also claims to represent the constellation of the Big Bear, Ursa Major, in the sky, one of the most ancient and prominent constellations, suggesting his cosmic pretensions. The deep etymology of Asmodeus. Now, the name has two competing but possibly overlapping root theories, and it gets very interesting here. The Persian origin Possibly. The name most likely derives from the Persian Aishmadeva, literally the demon of wrath in Zoroastrianism, the ancient Iranian figure who was incorporated into Jewish tradition during the Archimedes period, when the Jews lived under Persian rule following the Babylonian exile, a striking example of religious exchange between two great civilizations. A Hebrew root here, some scholars have connected his name to the Hebrew word shamad, meaning to exterminate or annihilate. The debate is serious among scholars. The Jewish Encyclopedia of 1906 rejects the etymological link to Ashima Deva, claiming the particle deva could not have become die, and that the compound never appears as such in Persian sacred texts. Yet, the same encyclopedia concedes elsewhere that Asmodeus embodies the expression of the influence that the Persian religion or Persian popular beliefs have exercised. So there is some overlap. The Zoroastrian Ashima himself is described in the Avesta in vivid terms. Aishma, excuse me, Aeshma, Aishma of the bloody mace, most violent of the demons of wrath, who sows destruction among men and cattle. Yeah, we have them here. I think Solomon learned to bind the spirit of the shapeless to man by shattering their conscience and making their shadow side rule them. And now we have the Freemasons, the better men, of course. Lol, chess. Yeah, are you on your square? Um, hey, yes, I agree. Solomon wrested control and forced these demons to build his temple. Was that good? Was that bad? Hey, man, it was productive. So, let me see here. The Zoroastrian Aishma himself is described in the Avesta in vivid terms. Aishma of the bloody mace, right, we did that already, which sows destruction, strikingly close match to Asmodeus' behavior in Tobit. Again, a little overlap there. So, Raphael and his other binding, Azazel, in Enoch 1. Enoch 1:10, excuse me. This is the most theologically explosive parallel in 1 Enoch chapter 10. Before the events of Tobit, God gives Raphael a direct commission. Bind Azazel hand and foot and cast him into the darkness. Make a hole in the desert in Dudael and throw him in. Place upon him rough and jagged rocks, cover him with darkness, and let him remain there forever, and cover his face so that he may not see light. On the day of great judgment, he shall be thrown into the fire. Why God waits, I don't know. In 1 Enoch, Raphael ties Azazel's hands and feet and throws him into darkness. In Tobit, Raphael similarly binds Asmodeus so he can't harm Tobias and Sarah. Both follow Jewish apocalyptic traditions about judging rebellious divine beings. The parallel structure is seemingly intentional. You got Raphael binding, physical binding, hand and foot. In Enoch, in Tobit, he uses the smoke and fish organs. It's a desert. It's a desert, both in Enoch and Tobit. It's indefinite what he does to Asmodeus, but it's until the final judgment for Enoch. And the purpose, removing corruption from the earth with Azazel, and freeing Sarah, enabling holy marriage. So in 1 Enoch 10, Raphael's binding of Azazel is described in terms that parallel and anticipate binding of Satan in Revelation 20. Azazel is bound, hand and foot, cast into the desert pit, covered with rough rocks and darkness, and sealed there. This creates a stunning three-text chain. You got Enoch, you got Tobit, you got Revelation 20, all sharing the same angelic binding vocabulary. Now here's Raphael's cosmic portfolio in 1 Enoch. Yeah, right, stay away from holes in the desert. Good advice. In 1 Enoch, Raphael is described as set over all disease and every wound of the children of people, and binds the armies of Azazel and throws them into the valley of fire. It makes him not just a healer of individuals, but a cosmic physician who removes the very source of disease and corruption from the world. Obviously, he didn't remove all of them. Well, let's see here. Adam and Eve were not the first humans. They were the first lineage of the Nephilim. Cain and Abel were giants that lived long, that gave sacrifice to the fallen Enoch, and everyone Noah. They all lived a very long time. They were blue blood lineage. Interesting. You think they were copper blooded. They were the Anunnaki. Thank you, Y-Files. So, Raphael is the archangel most specifically tied to exorcism. Among the three scriptural archangels, Raphael is the one most extensively described in explicit exorcistic action. Michael defeats Satan and casts fallen angels into the abyss, but Raphael's encounters with demonic powers, Asmodeus and Tobit and Azazel and Enoch 1, are narrated in an unusually specific detail, and they've shaped the Christian theology of healing as intrinsically connected to spiritual warfare. The patristic reading of Asmodeus's motivation is also theologically rich. Asmodeus, in the theological tradition, represents the demonic perversion of conjugal love into destruction. Raphael's counteraction, facilitating a holy marriage through prayer and sacred materials, is therefore a restoration of divine order at its most intimate level. Now, the Talmudic Asmodai, a surprisingly different portrait. The Babylonian Talmud presents a remarkably different Asmodeus. The figure of Ashmedai in the Talmud is less malign in character than the Asmodeus of Tobit. In the former, he appears repeatedly in the light of a good-natured and humorous fellow. In the Talmudic story, Solomon tricks Ashmedai by getting him drunk and uses him to help build the temple by cutting stones without iron tools, as Mosaic law required. Ashmedai eventually overthrows Solomon from his throne for a period before being subdued. So Ashmedai is like, yeah, I'll help you for a time, but I'm going to take that throne. And then Solomon puts him down again. King Solomon uses him to build the temple. Asmodeus eventually overthrows Solomon for several years, but then he gets subdued once again. Now, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, we look at Tobit's authenticity. So, Protestant reformers rejected Tobit, partly on the grounds that it was not found in Hebrew or Aramaic manuscripts, but this objection was definitively answered in the 1940s and 50s when the Dead Sea Scrolls yielded 4 manuscripts of Tobit in Aramaic and 1 in Hebrew, confirming its original Semitic composition. Dramatically changes the textual landscape. The binding of Asmodeus is attested in manuscripts from Qumran, placing it firmly with the same scriptural community that produced much of what we now know about the Second Temple Jewish angelology. There is a little bit of Islamic tradition here with Asmodeus as Sakhr. And again, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correct, Sakhr. I'm going to go ahead and say Sakhr, like if you are saying sack and you just kind of trail off Sakhr. Um, in Islamic culture, Asmodeus is known as a demon called Sakhr, which means rock, probably a reference to his fate being imprisoned inside a box of rock, chained with iron and thrown into the sea, or his association with the desires of the lower world. He features prominently as the antagonist of the prophet Solomon. In the Quranic verse, 38, 34, and again, Sod, we tested Solomon placing a deformed body on his throne. It's identified by classical Islamic commentators as referring to Sakhr or Asmodeus. The overarching thread across all of this is that Raphael's specific domain is the restoration of what demonic powers corrupt. Whether that is the earth's purity, human health, or the sanctity of marriage, his binding actions are not punishment so much as they are acts of cosmic medicine. Now, I asked Claude, okay, can we go deeper on Raphael, please? Explain his sigils, how they may have come about. And I got this question. I was like, why would angels or demons provide humans their sigils? So Claude comes back and says, well, this is a rich topic. You get a little sycophantic. Yeah, this is cool. But again, I appreciate this really interesting conversation I had with AI. So this rich topic sits at the crossroads of theology, Kabbalah, Renaissance magic, and sacred mathematics. Let's unpack it all carefully. So, what is a sigil, technically? Well, the word comes from the Latin sigillium, which means seal. A sigil is not merely a symbol, but a compressed identity, a visual glyph believed to encode the essential nature of a being so precisely that engaging with it is, in some sense, engaging with the being itself. In the grimoire tradition, a sigil functions as an angel's or spirit's signature, the way a seal pressed into wax authenticates a letter. So the primary source for sigils is the Grimoire of Armadale. The Grimoire of Armadale is the primary source for certain summoning sigils for many archangels, including Raphael. The book mostly deals with Kabbalistic magic and interpretations of ancient Jewish texts, including various books of the Bible. Further gives instructions for conjuring spirits, predominantly angels, demons, archangels, and Olympic spirits. This edition was translated by Samuel Mathers from the 17th century manuscript. There's your Mason connection. And kept at the Bibliothèque d'Arsenal in Paris. The grimoire contains detailed descriptions of the natures and offices of various spirits, with sigils giving power over demons, archangels, reproduced together with their practical uses. Can we read the Old Testament next week? Well, it depends. If you got a favorite book, let me know, but we got to go through this chunk first here. So, one practitioner who worked directly with the Armadale noted something fascinatingly anomalous. Usually, the Armadale has two sets of sigils for the archangels. First, the characters, and then the circular seal. Minor angels have characters and no seals, but most major angels who have seals almost always have characters for whatever reason. Raphael only has a single seal. Now, I have to admit, I also found you can find another seal for Raphael. Raphael is the angel of Wednesday, and he's got a particular seal for that, but it's not a sigil. The paragraph on Raphael also has a very lacking description. Somebody didn't like Raphael, mentioning just the story of Tobit. The anomaly is theologically suggestive, however. Raphael's identity in the grimoire tradition is so deeply tied to the Tobit narrative that his sigil almost grows directly out of that story. As for the seal itself, and it's a cool seal, my goodness. Is there a way? So I am new to live streaming. How do I share? It said share screen. Okay, let's see. Sigil of Raphael. I'm going to find the sigil of Raphael. Sigil. And see if I can show it to you. Yeah, cool. Let's see, open in a new tab here. Great. All right, let's see if we can share the screen. I have so many tabs open. Sure. All right. We got to turn that on. Thanks for, well, I can't show, forget that. If you could see that, I'm not going to share my password. Let me see if I can share this here. No, no. There it is. So can you see that? That's the sigil of Raphael. All right, that's what we're talking about. Cool? Yeah? Good. All right. Well, that's I. So the Otheos is Greek in that sigil for "O God." Agios means sacred or saint. Then there is this Raphael and Adonai, a Hebrew god name. The two X shapes are the first Hebrew letter Aleph. The seal is therefore itself a prayer, a compressed invocation layered in Greek, Hebrew, and sacred naming. How the sigils are constructed, the mathematics of the name. Are you guys familiar with how sigils are made? No, you can't see it. Oh, yeah. And yeah, one moment. Let's see if I can find it again here. Maybe. Oh, how about now? Can you see it now? There we go. Yeah, there it is. There it is. Okay. I'm seeing it on mine. Can you see it on your end? All right, tight. Okay, cool. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate it. So that's what I'm talking about, right? So you got the two X's, which are actually Aleph. That's his main sigil in the middle there. And then you got the Greek words and the names of God, Otheos, and Adonai. Okay, so let's see here. The sigil associated with planetary intelligences was published by Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa in the 16th century. The three-volume book, The Three Books of Occult Philosophy. It is a tome. It is massive. These sigils were constructed through numerology and magic squares. Each planetary intelligence is given a unique name. When constructing the sigils, the name is spelled out in Hebrew, and then each Hebrew letter is associated with a number. Each number is located on a magic square associated with the individual planet, and a line is drawn past through each number in sequence, forming a unique planetary sigil. Let's see, I'm going to stop sharing this one. I'm going to try and find the magic square of Mercury. because this is how you make Raphael's sigil. I'll be describing the process here. Great. Okay, hang in there. We're going to do it. I'm opening a new tab and I'm going to share it. Okay. Thanks for your patience. There we go. Cool. All right. So that's the square of Mercury. Raphael is the archangel traditionally assigned to the planet Mercury, and Raphael is described as the angel of Wednesday, like I had said earlier, associated with the astrological symbol of Mercury, the zodiacal sign of Gemini and Virgo, which are the houses of that planet, and the name of the second heaven, Rakie, Raquie, Raquie. Mercury's Kamea is an 8 by 8 magic square, as we are seeing right now, containing the numbers 1 through 64, 8 times 8. The name Raphael in Hebrew is converted via gematria. R equals 200, P equals 8, A equals 1, L equals 30. When you can't find like 200, usually you break it down to the closest number that you, so 20 is what it would be broken down to. And those either 20 or 2. And those numerical positions are then connected by lines through the grid, producing a unique abstract shape that is simultaneously mathematical and mystical. And there are several versions of this. The one that I had shown you is the one that I'm most familiar with. But there are other versions of the ways you can write Raphael's seal or sigil. Agrippa's magic squares are sometimes called kameas, continue to be used with modern ceremonial magic in much the same way as he first prescribed. The most common use for these kameas is to provide a pattern upon which to construct the sigils of spirits, angels, or demons. The letters of the entity's name are converted into numbers, and the lines are traced through the pattern that these successive numbers make on the kamea. Thank you. Yes. Bingo. All right, I will stop sharing. Oh, there we go. So there is another method, the rose cross method. It's a similar, so I'll find it. It's a similar method. It's just a different kind of map that you are using. I was actually first introduced to this one. So here is a great example of how one would design a sigil on the Rose Cross map. I'm going to share it in just a moment. Cool, right? Oh, there we go. Not as big, I apologize. But basically, there's the idea, right? You find the letter or the corresponding number. Here we are using the actual letters, and you are drawing from here to here to here to here to here to here. There you go. You got yourself a sigil. And that is a particular way to commune, to interact, to invoke a particular spirit by their name. Fascinatingly, I was first introduced to the idea that names have power through Ursula K. Le Guin in her books, The Wizard of Earthsea. She talks about that. Never work with shadow spirits, bad idea. Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, we're all on our own journey, but I'm gonna have to agree with you. Yeah. So I'm sweating in here. It's warm. I'm in my booth. Okay, so we got that. We're good. Good. Okay, moving on. Rose cross method. We get that. We can skip that. You understand? It's basic, same idea. The key insight in both of these methods is that the sigil does not represent Raphael. It is Raphael's name made visible in space. The glyph, the sigil, it's the name. The name is the angel's essence. And that's true for any sigil that you might be operating with. Now, there's a deeper layer here why a sigil works theologically. Brings us to a particular point here in our conversation. Why would an angel want or allow humans to have a sigil? The answer is kind of twofold. So there's a correspondence principle. In Agrippa's contribution, it was not merely complementary. He embedded the squares within the coherent theory of sympathetic magic. This will come up again in later episodes of this series. But mathematical order serves as a resonance mechanism between microcosm and macrocosm. In this worldview, and this is an interesting worldview, God's creation however you want to call God, is structured in a hierarchy of correspondences. Every earthly thing has a celestial counterpart, and every celestial being governs particular domains. A sigil's not a magic trick, it's a tuning fork, something shaped to vibrate at the precise frequency of a divine being, inviting that being's influence. The angel is a willing mediator. In the theological tradition, going back to the Tobit story itself, Raphael's entire mission is to serve as God's intermediary with suffering humanity. He tells Tobit and Tobias, I am Raphael, one of the seven holy angels which present the prayers of the saints and which go in and out before the glory of the Holy One. This is an interesting language. He is structurally positioned between God and humans, not as a barrier, but as a channel. The sigil, from this view, is not a human imposition on the angel. It is the formalized interface that Raphael's intercessory nature naturally produces. The grimoire of Armadale explicitly teaches that Raphael is a spirit of science who bestowed upon King Solomon his knowledge and wisdom of science and the earth. So here we have, just really quick aside, here we have a good guy angel, for lack of a better term. That is far too much of a simplification, but it works for the moment. Here he is doing the same thing that the purported fallen angels did, giving us knowledge willingly, providing information, expanding consciousness, growing ourselves. Raphael gave humanity the tools for understanding, and the sigil is one such tool. The name power doctrine. Crucially, this thinking is present not just in magical texts, but in the very biblical and apocryphal tradition we have been tracing. In the Testament of Solomon, when Asmodeus names Raphael as the power that frustrates him, the name functions almost like a sigil. The demon recoils from it. The sigil is simply the visible form of the name's power. In Jewish mysticism, particularly in the Sefer Yetzirah and later Kabbalistic thought, Hebrew letters are not arbitrary symbols, but the building blocks of creation itself. And that is not just for the Hebrew alphabet. The Greek alphabet also is considered mathematically stacked like the Hebrew alphabet. Each letter has weight, shape, and cosmic force. A sigil, derived from the letters of Raphael's name, literally traces the pattern of creation through which his angelic nature is expressed. So it's the angel's phone number, digital ID. It is the identification and call up sign to say, yo, I'm calling you to attention in one form or another. I need your help. I am invoking you. The planetary angelic hierarchy and Raphael's domain. So Mercury is ruled by Raphael, and it's said to aid in communication, trade, intellect, and working with the correct planetary hour for maximizing the sigil's energetic efficacy. Planetary correspondence is not arbitrary. Mercury is, in ancient cosmology, governed by medicine. Hermes, Mercury, we see a trend, which is the god of doctors and healing. Travel as well. Raphael is the protector of pilgrims. Hey, let's take a walk. And communication, Raphael literally speaks for God. His domain fits his nature with remarkable precision. The writings of King Solomon indicate that the sigil of the archangel Raphael must be used to invoke the spirit of Raphael on Sunday before sunrise, though different traditions vary on timing. This underscores the integration of sigil use with planetary and solar timing, reflecting the idea that the cosmos must be aligned before contact is made. A book told you that how it really works. They control you. There are many. Even your subconscious mind, especially your subconscious mind. Okay, so the question of whether Raphael provided the sigil. This is the deepest and most theologically serious question. There are really two answers. Grimoire tradition says the sigil was revealed to wise men, Solomon, certain prophets, later Renaissance magi, as part of a broader transmission of divine knowledge. In this view, the Renaissance kind of grimoire tradition Raphael actively participated in giving humanity the tools to invoke healing and protection. The Grimoire of Armadale contains figures described as coming directly from angelic instruction, and the tradition attributes its material ultimately to Solomonic revelation. The constructivist view, so it's a different view. The sigil is a human construction, a mathematical mystical portrait of Raphael derived from the Kabbalistic properties of his name. It was not given by Raphael, but built toward him, the way a cathedral is built toward heaven without heaven handing over the blueprints. These two views are not necessarily contradictory if the Hebrew letters in Raphael's name truly encode his divine nature, as Kabbalistic theology holds. Then constructing a sigil from those letters is simultaneously a human act and a response to the divine structure already embedded in creation. The sigil works not because Raphael granted a password, but because the cosmos is built in such a way that his name, properly traced, opens a genuine resonance with his angelic function. Resonance is something that will continue to come back. Mr. Douglas, how do you know these things? Are you into the occult? I am into understanding and empowering human beings. That's what I'm into. And there are many ways in which to do that. One of these ways is to explore this information, but that is why I'm here. I'm here for us so that all this other doesn't take us unawares. Oh, you couldn't have put it better, Jack. Know thy enemy. Okay, so I write to Claude, cool, thanks for the Raphael. I want counter arguments. Can we look at the premise that the fallen angels are good guys? I want to explore this perspective. Let's get all eyes on the story. That they came here to help humanity. They were on the side of humanity. That God's angels are working against the awakening of humans to higher levels of consciousness and growth, right? That we hear this common trope where the fallen angels actually wanted us to wake up and that God was trying to keep us down. So Claude says in the original text of what 1 Enoch actually says, and this is for the case of the fallen angels as humanity's benefactors, we're exploring a striking irony given our entire conversation. In 1 Enoch, the very text where Raphael binds Azazel, the Watchers, the fallen angels, they're portrayed as descending to earth and teaching humanity. Now, the curriculum is interesting. The curriculum includes from Azazel, specifically metalworking, weaponsmithing, and cosmetics. It's interesting, swing a sword, paint your face. Semyaza, who is the leader of the 200, also known as Satan or Lucifer, but Semyaza in 1 Enoch teaches enchantments, astrology, the cutting of roots, and medicine. Other watchers teach the signs of the sun and the moon, and all the secrets of heaven, more astrological and sky-based science. The orthodox reading is that this knowledge was corrupting. It led to violence, vanity, and the breakdown of the natural order. But the counter reading does ask, why is knowledge itself framed as a crime? Azazel is bound and buried in darkness specifically for teaching. The punishment and the offense are revealing. Proponents of this view point out that God's response in 1 Enoch is not to heal or correct humanity, it's to flood us. Total annihilation. Raphael's binding of Azazel from this lens is the suppression of a teacher by an authority that fears an educated population. From this, particular perspective. Now, the garden revisited here, the serpent as a liberator. In the most ancient version of this argument, which is part of the Eden narrative, the standard reading, the serpent deceives Eve, introduces sin, causes the fall. The counter reading, more often than not appearing in Gnostic texts, taken seriously by Gnostic schools from the 2nd century CE onward, inverts this entirely. In the Gnostic text, on the origin of the world and the is it hypostasis or hypostasis of the archons, both the Nag Hammadi texts. The serpent is identified with Sophia, divine wisdom. or her emissary, sent specifically to awaken Adam and Eve from their passive ignorance. God's prohibition, do not eat of the tree of knowledge, is reread not as a loving parental boundary, but as a deliberately imposed cognitive ceiling. You can only think so hard. The Gnostic demiurge, their name for the God of the Old Testament, oh, there goes my phone, uh, whom they distinguished from the true highest God, fears humanity gaining knowledge because knowledge leads to self awareness. Self awareness leads to recognition of one's divine spark, the pneuma, and recognition of this divine spark leads to liberation from material bondage. Liberation means the demiurge loses his subjects. From this view, the serpent's words, "You shall be as gods, knowing good and evil," are not a temptation, but a statement of fact and an act of mercy. God's response confirms it. The man has become like one of us. That's Genesis 3:22. He was telling the truth. God's immediate expulsion of humanity from the garden is read as a panic suppression of a newly awakened species. Oh God, what do we do? Kick him out. So this is cool because we do get a little bit of Prometheus in here, the pagan parallel that won't go away. The structural parallel between the Watchers of Enoch and the Prometheus myth is too close to be coincidental, but it's not a one-to-one layover. Scholars of comparative religion take it seriously. Prometheus steals fire, technology, illumination, creative power from the gods. He gives it to humanity out of love for them and is punished by Zeus with eternal torment, chained to a rock, his liver eaten daily by an eagle. Replace Prometheus with Azazel, fire with metallurgy and astronomy, Zeus with the god of Enoch, and the eagle with Raphael. And the narrative is nearly identical. The question the Promethean tradition forces is, whose side are you on? And do we need to pick a side? Can't we pick ourselves? Same story, just retold. Perhaps, but again, not a one-to-one overlay. We will explore that more in depth. Raphael may have guided someone who could have been Alexander the Great. Fascinating. Yes, legend. Awesome. Appreciate that, Chaos Pig. Prometheus is also known in another culture, Ahriman in Georgia. Haha, I did not know that Prometheus is synonymous with Ahriman. That I'm familiar with Steiner, and I know what Steiner says about Ahriman. No bueno. Uh, I stole a fire one time. Ribs was cooking. No Ahriman. Okay, all right. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Nuclear, and thank you, Chaos Pig. Having a good time. Appreciate you being here. So, in Asclepius's Prometheus Bound, Zeus is explicitly portrayed as a tyrant, insecure in his newly won power, afraid of a prophecy that humanity will surpass the gods. Prometheus's crime is not rebellion against goodness. It is threatening a monopoly of power. The gods keep fire not because humans can't handle it. It's because fire is leverage. Knowledge is leverage. But instead of being chained, he was locked in a cave with water for stealing fire. He was a demigod, half human, half fallen. Interesting, perhaps. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if Prometheus is synonymous with either Azazel or any of the Watchers. Could it be, I'm just going to skip to a side here, could it be that this has happened several times and perhaps from different entity groups? Could Prometheus be a part of a different group from the Watchers? Or could this have happened at multiple places at the same time? I don't know. We don't know. We just get these whispers and myths and old books that people take way too literally. Just my opinion. The Gnostic cosmology, archons as jailers. So, Gnosticism developed the most fully elaborated theological system around this premise, its core architecture. The highest unknowable God, the monad, right, the true divine, did not create the material world. Mm. The material world was created by a lesser, ignorant, or malevolent being, the demiurge, Yaldabaoth, and his assistants, the archons. The archons are the gods and angels of conventional religion, including in many Gnostic schools, the God of the Old Testament and his angelic hierarchy. Humans contain a divine spark, yes, the pneuma, Pneuma, trapped in matter, remnants of a higher reality that fell or was captured. The Archon's primary goal is to keep humans asleep, ignorant of their divine nature because an awakened humanity poses an existential threat to the Archon's dominion. The serpent, Sophia, certain Gnostic Redeemer figures, and in some texts, Lucifer, are cast as agents of the true God, working against the demiurge to wake humanity up. The system is internally consistent and theologically sophisticated. It explains suffering, the demiurge is incompetent or cruel, explains why God's angels seem to enforce obedience and ignorance rather than freedom, and explains why genuine spiritual awakening is always portrayed as dangerous and punished. But again, as we had discussed earlier in this stream, Raphael actually gifts knowledge. He empowers Tobias. So, moving on, Lucifer, the light bearer, reconsidered. The name Lucifer means light bearer or morning star in Latin. It appears in Isaiah 14:12 as a poetic metaphor for the king of Babylon's fall. How you have fallen from heaven, morning star, son of the dawn. And again, Isaiah 14:12, and was only later applied to Satan by early Christian interpreters. The Luciferian philosophical tradition, distinct from Satanism, which is largely a provocation, takes the name seriously. Light bearing in this context means the transmission of illumination, gnosis, self knowledge, esoteric wisdom, the willingness to bring fire from heaven at personal cost, defiance of an authority that hoards truth as a means of control. In this tradition, in this tradition, Lucifer's fall is reread as a voluntary descent, a conscious choice to enter matter and transmit divine light to imprisoned souls at the cost of exile from the heavenly hierarchy. Really doesn't seem like it gets much out of the deal. The punishment confirms the crime's nobility. You are expelled from a system precisely when you threaten its power structure. Well, if you've worked at a corporate company, you know what that might feel like. William Blake, who studied the tradition deeply, explicitly cast the god of Orthodox religion as Nobodaddy, which is a hilarious name, a jealous, tyrannical sky father, and Satan or Lucifer as the revolutionary energy of creative imagination and human potential. His Marriage of Heaven and Hell, the book, is perhaps the most sophisticated literary treatment of this inversion. Now, the Watchers as the first scientists. So we're going back to 1 Enoch with fresh eyes. The Watchers' specific curriculum is remarkable: astronomy, medicine, botany, metallurgy, writing, makeup. These are not random corruptions, they are the foundations of civilization. Every culture has a myth of a being who gives humanity the tools of culture against the will of the gods. You got Prometheus with fire, Thoth. Writing, Quetzalcoatl, who brings agriculture and calendars. Enki, wisdom and civilization. The pattern is universal. It seems like this story is, this happened in some form or function maybe more than once. The counter-argument notes that in every one of these myths, the gods initially oppose the gift. The divine establishment is consistently on the side of humanity remaining primitive. The rebellious figure, whether fallen angel, titan, or trickster god, is consistently the one who says they deserve to know. What's going on here? It's called Kavamli Mountain Rebirth. Where is Kavamli Mountain? I would like to know. Let's go visit. Maybe, maybe not. From this angle, Raphael binding Azazel in darkness is not victory for good over evil. It is the equivalent of burning a library. The knowledge Azazel transmitted didn't create violence. Human nature created violence. The knowledge was neutral at worst, liberating at best. The obedience structure of God's angels. So proponents of this view also look at the nature of the loyal angels themselves. Raphael, Michael, Gabriel, they never question. They never deviate. They never exercise independent judgment. And this is interesting because this is from scholars. Did they not read the book of Tobit? Because as we just saw, that's not the case. But anyway, so they never exercise independent judgment. They are pure instruments of divine will. In the Gnostic reading, this is not a virtue, but a warning sign. An entity incapable of independent moral reasoning is, by definition, incapable of genuine compassion. It can only execute commands. The Watchers, by contrast, chose to descend. They acted outside their mandate. Whatever one thinks of the consequences, the act required moral agency. We'll go into it. We get into the nitty-gritty as to why the 200 decided to fall, and it's not it's they got different reasons. The one quality that genuine freedom requires, the moral agency. From this view, the fallen angels are the only beings in the narrative who demonstrate actual personhood because they demonstrate the capacity for an unsanctioned choice made out of something like love. So there is some Nag Hammadi evidence. The discovery of the Nag Hammadi library in 1945 gave scholars access to primary Gnostic texts that had been systematically destroyed by Orthodox Christianity precisely because they represented the alternative reading, the Apocryphon of John, the Gospel of Philip, the Gospel of Truth, and others paint a coherent picture of a divine realm of fullness, the Pleroma, a fallen Sophia whose error produces the demiurge. Come on, Sophia. Archons who enforce ignorance, a redemptive figure who awakens the divine spark in humanity. These weren't fringe lunatics. Gnosticism was a serious theological competitor to Orthodox Christianity in the second and third centuries. It lost, but the suppression of its texts rather than its arguments raises its own uncomfortable question about power and knowledge. Now, the strongest counter arguments to this view, the problem of the consequences. So the Watcher's knowledge did produce it did produce catastrophic violence, according to Enoch, not as a metaphor, but as a narrative fact. Even granting the nobility the gift, the teacher, uh, even granting the nobility of the gift, the quote teacher bears no responsibility for the student argument has limits, right? Gnostic dualism. The Gnostic system requires a fundamentally evil or incompetent creator God which most theologians across Judaism, Christianity, and Islam find incoherent with the coherent universe. Well, sure. If the demiurge is stupid or malevolent, how does anything beautiful or ordered exist? Now, that's a fair question, right? That is a fair. Oh, Jack, this was great. Thank you for hanging. I appreciate you. Be well. Um, so, yeah, okay. But do you need a beautiful or ordered world to exist with only an ordered supreme being? Could there be another supreme being, above it? Excuse me. Possibly, I don't know, but they're not willing to go there. They, stick with only the classical texts. So, but it's a fair question. The romanticization trap. There is a tendency in this tradition to romanticize rebellion for its own sake. Important to consider, to assume the outlaw is always the hero. Are they? No. Not all the time. But defiance of authority is not inherently noble. Depends entirely on what you are defying, and why. Raphael's own complexity. As our whole conversation shows, Raphael and Tobit acts with profound love and compassion. He accompanies Tobias, protects him, heals his father, frees Sarah. He's no jailer. If God's angels are suppressors of human growth, why does Raphael spend the entire book of Tobit doing the precise opposite, doing basically what the fallen angels apparently did, which is, hey man, let me teach you how to use this fish. We're gonna teach you how to get rid of demons. We're gonna hook you up. I'm gonna get you a wife. The honest answer is that both readings are assessing something real, a genuine tension which within the texts between divine sovereignty and human freedom, between obedience and the awakening, between protection and control. The most serious thinkers in this space, from the Gnostics to Blake to Young, aren't simply inverting good and evil. They're pointing at an authentic theological problem that Orthodox traditions have never fully resolved. If God made us to grow, why does growth so often require transgression? Now it's we've done this for an hour. I'm having fun. I think this is a good place to pause. The next episode will be the case for the archangels as bringers of knowledge and enlightenment. We're going to look at it again from a different angle. We'll start with Raphael and we'll go from there, and we will go further and further, deeper down the rabbit hole. Some previews. I did actually do some interesting work with Claude in overlaying the 9 on the fallen and seeing whether there are any correlations and connections there. There are. And we'll go into that. We'll go into that and all sorts of more stuff. like what we can do about it. But that's later in the series. Stay tuned for more. Thank you so much for hanging, and I will catch you on the next one.